I never trade for free, the tradesman said, and extended an open palm toward me. I placed a few gold coins in his hand. He kept his hand extended, and I placed a few more coins into it until he was satisfied. Her name is Hagatha, the tradesman said. Where can I find her? Take this path west into the dwarf forest, past the 3 boulders, and then follow the smoke, the tradesman said, and that was all the direction he gave. He took the reins of his mule and traveled away from me. Had I been thinking clearly, I would have chased after him and asked for more instructions, but instead I took off running toward the dwarf forest. I had never been inside the dwarf forest before. I had been told of their dangers since I was a child. And once I was there, I knew why I had been warned. The trees grew so thick and close that someone could be standing 3 feet away from you and you would never know that they were there. It took 2 days to find the 3 boulders the tradesman had spoken of. They were 3 large rocks that stuck straight out of the ground and were tilted in a peculiar position. I thought perhaps they might have been pointing at something, so I lowered my head to look in the direction they pointed. The boulders pointed directly between 2 trees, separated just enough that you could see a wide patch of the sky, and in this patch I could see smoke. I ran toward the source of the smoke. Wherever it was coming from, it was completely off the path, and I almost seriously injured myself jumping over bushes and tree roots as I went. Occasionally, I could see the sky through the tree branches, and I could tell if I was off track. I must have traveled in circles for hours. Every time I thought I was just about to find the place from which the smoke came, the wind would shift into another direction. I was lost. Every way I turned looked exactly the same. I felt as if the forest had swallowed me. The sun was setting, and the smoke became harder to see. I started to panic. There was no shelter in sight. I thought for sure a treacherous beast would find me during the night and make a feast out of me. I started running again. I could barely see where I was going at this point. I could hear howling in the distance. I tripped and fell straight through a large thorn bush. I landed hard in the grass on the other side of the thorn bush. I was scraped, scratched, and bleeding. I got to my feet and looked around. I was standing in a large circular clearing in the forest surrounded by a large wall of thorn bush. In the center of this clearing was a small hut with a hay roof and a brick chimney, and rising out of this chimney was the smoke I had been following. No wonder it had been so hard to find. I must have been wandering in circles around it, not knowing it was hidden behind the thorn bush. I approached the hut slowly. It had 1 door and 2 windows, and that was all. I went to knock on the door, but it burst open before I had a chance. "Who are you?" said the woman who emerged from the hut. I knew from the second I saw her that it was Hagatha. She looked like a human tree stump. She was short and wore a brown hooded cloak. Deep wrinkles circled her face, and one of her eyes was squinted. Her nose was one of the smallest I had ever seen and was neighbored by a gigantic mole. "Are you Hagatha?" I asked her. "How did you find me?" she snapped. "I tripped through the thorn bush," I said. "But how did you know I was here?" she asked. Her squinted eye squinted even more. "The traveling tradesman," I told her. "He said you knew of the wishing spell." Hagatha grunted and sighed at the same time. Her lips wrinkled and looked me up and down. Reluctantly, she gestured to me to follow her inside. "Come in, come in," Hagatha said. The inside of the hut was an utter mess. There were vials of strange liquids everywhere. Some bubbled, some glistened, some steamed. There were dozens of glass jars containing the strangest things: dead and alive reptiles, insects of every species, even a glass jar of various eyeballs, even though they had been plucked out of their owners' lids. I swear one of them blinked at me. I was surprised to see how many animals were inside the hut as well. Everything from geese and chickens to hummingbirds and monkeys all resided in cages. They were all restless, prisoners no doubt. "Have a seat," Hagatha instructed. She pointed to a chair at the end of a table so large that it almost took up the entire hut. "I see that you're a collector of sorts," I said. She didn't welcome the conversation. She ignored me and collected a few items around the room. "A bowl here, a vial there, a thorn bush surrounding your home is very clever," I said. "It must keep out most unwanted visitors." "Most," she said, and glared at me. "That thorn bush is from the Sleeping Kingdom. I planted it here, and it grew around my home in a perfect circle, just as it grew around the castle while the queen was in her 100-year sleep. You are the first to break through it." "I do apologize." "This will cost you 15 gold coins," Hagatha said, and took a seat across from me. "For what?" I asked. You want to know what the wishing spell items are, don't you?" she asked. "That is why you're here, is it not?" I reached into my pocket and laid all the coins I had left on the table. Unfortunately, doing business with the tradesmen had left me short. "I only have 14 coins," I told her. Hagatha did not look pleased. "You stupid youth and your wishes. Very well," she said, and scooped up all the coins with one swipe. She placed a bowl in front of her and emptied the contents of the 2 vials into it, one red liquid, the other blue. "One eye of an eagle, the wings of a pixie, and the heart of a newt," Hagatha said, and added these items into the bowl, plus 3 drops of giant blood, the big toe of an ogre, and a straw of golden hay. "That completes the potion." With all the ingredients added, the liquid in the bowl started to smoke and glow. Hagatha leaned over it and breathed it in. She closed her eyes and lost herself in a moment of deep thought. "Does this potion tell you what the wishing spell items are?" I asked her. "No, but it helps me remember," Hagatha said. "You aren't the first and you won't be the last person to request the list. Consider yourself warned. Many people have lost their lives trying to acquire these items. They are impossible to collect. I'd rather die trying than live the rest of my life wondering if I could have done it," I said. "Then listen carefully to what I'm about to say, because I'll only say it once," Hagatha said. I leaned as close to her as I possibly could. The anticipation made every second feel like an hour. This is what I had come all this way for. "There are 8, Hagatha said. She took a deep breath and then listed the items. "Glass that housed a lonely soul, up till midnight's final toll. A saber from the deepest sea, meant for a groom's mortality. The bark of a basket held in fright, while running from a bark with bite. A stony crown that's made to share, found deep within a savage lair. A needle that pierced the lovely skin of a princess, with beauty found within. A wavy lock of golden rope, that once was freedom's only hope. Glittering jewels whose value increased after preserving the false, deceased. Teardrops of a maiden fairy, feeling neither magical nor merry. I repeated the list to myself the entire way home and wrote the wishing spell list and my journey thus far into this journal. I don't know how I'm going to gather these items, but my goal is to find them and then record how I managed it, in case I ever need to do it again. If you're reading this, I hope it means I succeeded, and if you're reading this and are about to start a journey of your own, I wish you luck.